GloryCloud.tv is free praise and worship music that uplifts your heart and glorifies God. Contemporary Christian, gospel, and praise and worship. Let's all worship Jesus together. GloryCloud.tv is music from heaven to bring peace and hope to your day. GloryCloud.tv.
Hello, football world. My name is Aldo Gandia, and I ask the questions, and the gentleman beside me, he answers them, and he answers them professionally because he's been in the professional football business for many, many decades, including a long stint as the scouting director for the Chicago Bears. Greg Gabriel, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing well.
I know you're on. I know you're on the ledge. And you're ready to jump.
I am. Well,
I just want to know: you got a big soft cushion there at the bottom, or are you going to land on concrete?
That depends on what you have to say today. So please save my life.
Hey, you want to die? Go ahead. I
don't want to die. I don't want to die. I want to see another Super Bowl before I die. Can you make? Well, let me tell you. Last night on Bear Football, which is our show immediately after the game, I went through the stages of grief. You know, I started off anger, and then I went into denial. I said, maybe this team isn't as bad. But I woke up with kind of acceptance, accepting that maybe this team is not even a 500 team this season. What do you think?
Well, number one, in all honesty, did you really think they were going to win this game given the circumstances going into yesterday's game?
Nope.
Okay. So right out there, in fact, I had tweeted out, and then a bunch of people picked up on it, tweeted it out like it was their own. It said, basically worst case scenario, Bears are still in first place. And this was, before the Bears even played. This was right after the Green Bay game, because the whole division had lost. So, and I said, regardless of what happens tonight, you're going to wake up tomorrow and the Bears are in first place. So, as I said last week, I did not expect the Bears to win this game. Part of it, you got a long trip cross country, night game, and basically the opening of a new stadium. Yeah, they played there last year, but last year there was no fans. This year it was a packed house. And, so that made the environment a lot different, very strong for the Rams, anti-Bear. It didn't seem like when you see the Bears go on the road, often there's a ton of Bear fans there. That didn't seem like the case in LA yesterday. And I think part of it was people wanted to get in that stadium, see what it was like.
Yeah.
So, but Stafford played better than usual, but at the same time, he had the two big throws. Those were blown coverages, totally blown coverages. Okay. And if there was a disappointing thing about yesterday, and I'll get to the offense in a little while, the disappointing thing to me was the play of the defense. They held up against the run pretty good early on, and then second half, the Rams were able to run the ball. But the two blown coverages causing two huge explosive plays for touchdowns, that took the Bears right out of the game. Now, you can make this use. I tweeted out last night that non-call on the interference call on A-Rob. That cost the Bears, cost them a first down, cost them at least 3 points and maybe 7 points in that drive because of the non-call. Could that have changed things? Maybe a little, but you can't have a breakdown like that in coverage like they had, and they didn't have it once, they had it twice. And what I don't know, and I've watched it over, is the first one I'm positive was the safeties. They're both that, and I think Eddie Jackson just got totally beat. He was supposed to have the deep coverage there. The second one, I'm unsure about. If you watch the play, Marquis Christian is on the slot guy, and he passes them off to a safety as if there's supposed to be deep end coverage from the safety. Well, there's nobody there. So who blew the coverage? Was it Christian who blew it, close up in here, or was it down the field? See, if you watch when they show the end zone view of it, and I don't know, I'm watching it as you got it on there. I don't know if you got it. See,
no, I don't. Sorry.
He kind of stopped. They showed it, on one of the replays, and he kind of stops running as if he's expecting one of the safeties to pick this guy up deep. So somebody was wrong. Either he was wrong or the safeties were wrong. Regardless, that shouldn't happen. Okay, the mistakes like that, you see what happens when you make a mistake like that. Mistakes like that cost you points right off the bat. Now, let's go to Nagy's press conference an hour ago. And, he's not going to throw anybody under the bus. Never does, and he never will. He'll get them in the meeting room. But one of the writers asked, we can expect any changes. And my way of hearing his answer was, he didn't say, well, we'll discuss, he kind of said, we'll discuss this during the week and then, determine that during practice. Just the way he answered it tells me there might be some changes on the back end this week because of that.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. And he did say a lot depends on matchups, sometimes you want to go big, blah, blah, blah. So he did kind of set the stage that perhaps there will be changes. Yeah.
Now, again, a coach would have to say who blew the coverage on that one play. And they'd know right away because they know what the responsibilities are. And from, the angles I had, I couldn't tell. I suspect that it was safeties on both TDs, but I may be wrong on the second one.
What do you think about what Ryan Badgley is saying here? Mike Vrabel called out one of his stars after the Tennessee game last night, but Nagy did not. Do you think? What's your philosophy on those kinds of things? Do you think a coach should publicly admonish a player if that player does badly?
I've always been against that. And, any coach that I've worked with, and the best being Bill Parcells, and I've worked with some pretty good ones, Dan Reeves, Bill Parcells, Tom Coughlin, damn good coaches. None of those guys will throw their players under the bus in a public setting. They'll make a change during the week. Now, in the meeting room, they'll rip a new one. But that's a different, you expect that in the meeting room. You screw up, you expect to get yelled at. And it's a performance-based game. You don't play well, you're either gone or you get replaced. And, a situation like that, that was costly. And then the other costly thing was, the turnover on the opening drive, but the big play there wasn't really the turnover. It was Cole Kmet's illegal procedure. Changed the whole
great point.
Changed the whole situation. You had a 2nd and 2 from the 2, and now you got from the 7, and it gives your defense more room for coverage. Changes your play call scenario, and so what they wanted to do to what they had to do, and then they get into a 3rd and long, and he throws the ball gets tipped and the ball gets intercepted. Whether Nagy said somebody said it looked like the ball wasn't going to make it anyway, and Matt came back and he said that it was tipped, so you can't really tell.
Exactly.
And I tend to agree with that. But still, you got to come out of a situation like that with at least 3 points, especially when you're on the road. And it's unfortunate, but I'm not putting the blame on Andy Dalton there. I'm putting the blame on Cole Kmet.
All right. So let's stay with the subject of Sean Desai, and then I want to talk about Eddie Jackson, because everybody in the chat room has got the torches and pitchforks out for both of these guys. So let's start with Sean Desai. This was Nagy defending Desai, who called his first NFL game. This was Nagy this morning, or just this afternoon, about an hour ago, defending his defensive coordinator. And the image is frozen here. I had some technical problems, but the audio is crisp.
And that's something that I have a lot of faith in Sean and our players in understanding that you go up against a potent offense and a pretty good team like the Rams. You better know what you're doing on every single play. And Sean's, we got together this morning as a staff, and we watched the film and went through different scenarios of the game. And there's some calls when you look through it, just like us as play callers, as everybody, there's some that you want back and that you put on yourself. And then there's others too, where you're like, you know what, this guy could have made a play here or there. And then there's some plays where, like that 4th and 1 that they had a 4th and 1, the bootleg to the right. Matthew made a great throw. It was a great catch. So there's sometimes they're just going to make plays. But overall, I'd say the biggest theme for us would be no panic, and just understand that, hey, this was Sean's first game calling, and this was our first game of 2021, and we understand that that's not good enough. We know we want to be better.
Greg, I don't have a problem with anything he said there. Every coach has had to have mistakes during their play calling a lifetime. And it wasn't a great debut for Sean Desai, but I don't think that he should be hung at the stakes. What do you think?
Well, he said a bunch of things there. And if you listen to it carefully, and now it's like the second time I heard it now, because I heard it live. And very nicely, he was pointing his finger at the players, but he also, and he was doing it to himself too. Hey, because he was speaking more in generalities. You didn't always have the right call for that particular situation. Meaning, were you in the right defense? Did you have the right play called for on offense, etc.? So he put a blame on all three. And he said, and the way he did that is what he said when we were meeting, going over the film as a group. But again, we've been around him long enough to know that in a public setting like that, he's going to be calm. He's not going to throw anybody under the bus, and he's going to say, we're going to work on it and we're going to get better. Now let's look at some of the positives. What was all the talk during the preseason and leading up to last night, that the offensive line was going to suck? My opinion, and they went through 3 left tackles in that game. The offensive line wasn't all that bad. That's a damn good defense they played against. Okay. Now, I had this thought in the back of my mind, all week. Yeah, it was the number 1 defense in the NFL last year, again, in yardage and points, but it's a different coordinator. And, is that going to make a big difference? Raheem called his own game. He had the same players. But I think, until the end of the game, as far as handling Aaron Donald, it reminded me of 2 years ago when the Bears beat the Rams on a Sunday night game in Chicago, where Donald didn't make a play. Well, they did a pretty good job blocking Aaron Donald. And it wasn't, he doesn't get a sack until the last offensive play of the game.
Right. And
he gets a pressure the series before that. But, up until then, he's a factor in that you got to know where he is. And it takes some things, but all told, the pass blocking, I thought it was going to be worse, put it that way. I wasn't sure how the Rams are tough to run against. Hey, the running game was pretty good yesterday. So there are some positive things. now we don't know. And he mentioned in the presser, we're going through that now as far as I think somebody asked, who's out, who's going to play. And, and he said, well, we're going through that now. We'll have a better idea tomorrow. Did the big tackle have a pull quad or just a bruise quad?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Borum he's going to be out a while. That was an ankle sprain. The guy got rolled up on, he's going to be out a while. So who's going to be playing left tackle this week? And that's, wouldn't shock me that they bring somebody in during the week.
Yeah, I think they have to at the very least for depth purposes, because outside of Elijah Wilkinson, who was the third left tackle in the game, they really don't have anyone else.
Well, they got Simmons. They got Simmons, who actually played pretty good, but he's never played on the left side.
Right.
Didn't college, but he's never done it.
Right. And Alex Bars has played a little left tackle too.
Right. Right.
So there is that. Now, let me get back to the press conference here, because I thought this was an interesting exchange between Mark Potash, a friend of the bar room, and he's always asking the tough questions to Matt Nagy. They had an exchange regarding the lack of tackling on the touchdown pass and so forth. I just took a snippet of this, and I include Mark's question. Here it comes.
This weekend.
The play where both Gibson and Eddie Jackson failed to touch Jefferson on the ground. I know you call that like a learning lesson, but to a lot of people that's an inexcusable mistake that anybody in high school knows an NFL player instinctively should do. And I guess the question is, that seems like a systemic or just an issue from the top that maybe what he's teaching they're not quite getting. So what kind of a problem is that to you when you see something like that?
I know everybody has their own opinions, and I respect that. I wouldn't agree with that in regards to starting with Sean or I think that's a learning experience, like I said yesterday, to where when that happens, they both tried to nonchalantly tag him. You know what I mean? So it was you got to do it more aggressively.
Greg, help me understand why this isn't a coach's problem, because the coaches tell the players, but if the players don't respond, perhaps the coaches aren't being effective.
To me, that plays all it has nothing to do with coaching. It has everything to do with the player and awareness. Let's watch this here first before I comment.
There it is. Very nonchalant.
Hey, it looked like Jackson nonchalantly tried to touch him with his right hand. The other one's Gibson. He didn't even try. So, how you'd have to see another angle to see how close Jackson was. But to me, that's on the player. That's laziness on the player's part for not. Here's a bit different angle. Hell, his hand isn't within 2 feet. Mm-hmm. It's you learn that growing up playing football. You got to touch the guy, and that those guys aren't rookies. Gibson's been in the league a long time. Jackson's been in the league a long time. Jackson's been a Pro Bowl. He knows you got to touch the guy. That total mental mistake, and just like it was a mental mistake on the play to begin with. You had blown covered. So.
Yes, indeed.
In the meeting room, somebody's got to be taken to task. Now, I get what Potash wants. He wants Nagy to publicly blow up at somebody. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, you might as well forget about it, because it's always going to be done privately. You start doing it publicly, and Vrabel played in the league, and he might be able to get away with it because he played a long time in the league. But a lot of times, you start doing that publicly, you're going to lose your players.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it.
The players are going to come back and F you.
Right. And so you, as the coach, say you say F you to the player in private. you don't hang him out.
Absolutely.
I totally agree with that. But Mark has to ask the question because it does seem like it's a systemic problem, and it's been going on for years with the Chicago Bears.
I don't know. I've never seen a play like that. That was lazy. I've never seen a play like that where they didn't touch a guy.
All right. Well, the reason I say that it's been a problem for years, it's the ball is on the ground against the Green Bay Packers in a pivotal game, and Lance Briggs and other people are just looking and not playing to the whistle. And it just seems like, and so it's just not this coaching staff. It seems like for years there's been problems with players playing to the whistle. I grew up watching Dick Butkus. He played well after the whistle. And so when I see some of this effort from current Bears, it's embarrassing as a Chicago Bears fan. It's hard to excuse that.
No, I'm not going to disagree with that, in that you want supreme effort for 60 minutes from every guy on the team. Okay. And an aggressive attitude. You want to play within the rules. You don't want to cheap shot people. But, I mean, if one of those two guys would have jumped on that receiver, there would not have been a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Because he could get up.
Right.
So, wouldn't have been a cheap shot or anything like that. But, yeah, that part I agree with. I think that's inexcusable. I don't know if it's a finable offense when you make a bonehead play like that.
Right.
But it should be.
Well, and to Nagy's credit, he did say at the press conference that not only should you touch him, just like you said, you should hit him. You should hit that player because that's
what I said. You can jump on
him. Yeah, exactly. So what about this play? Eddie Jackson's attempt at a tackle.
Yeah, that was well, go back a little bit. Okay. He takes a bad angle right from the start. He's taking a bad angle, and I've talked about that a lot. So far this year, you got to take good angles in pursuit. If you don't, that's going to happen. You're the ball carrier is going to make you look like a total idiot.
Yep, and it was a 3rd down and 13, so it's an opportunity to get the ball back, but instead, it's a heartbreaking play. And Eddie Jackson, I said this yesterday on Bear Football, he says all the right things off the field. He seems like a team leader and so forth, but there just seems to be, over the last few years, a lack of aggression. There's a videotape on the Bears YouTube channel of Eddie Jackson saying to his teammates, anybody can tackle. It's creating turnovers. That's the hard thing to do. And so that just leads me to think that he's not interested in tackling. He's interested in creating turnovers because that's how he got his rep in 2018 with all those.
Well, I mean, there's something to that. He's looking for the big play, but know how you make big plays? You make a lot of small plays first.
Thank you.
And the big plays come. So as a whole, the biggest disappointment in this game to me was not the offense; it was the defense.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing, the offense, the way I watched that game, and one of the questions said they added all the speed at the wide receiver position, yet they didn't take one shot downfield.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall a shot? I don't recall a deep throw.
Yeah, I was critical of the fact that Andy Dalton, I've got the stat up here. Let me call it up. He did not complete a pass over 10 yards at all last night.
They didn't throw any.
Exactly.
Okay, you can't complete it unless you throw it. So what tells me here, this is to me what was going on. The game plan was to try to, they had that one drive in the second half was 9 minutes long or something like that?
Yes.
The game plan was that.
Mm-hmm.
Move the ball, move the chains, short passes. Part of it, was they didn't know what they were going to have in the offensive line. So we got to get quick passes off. And Chris Collinsworth is not going to say a bad thing about Andy Dalton. They're bros.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Both Cincinnati guys. But he gave out the stat that, the amount of time it was taking Andy Dalton to get the ball out of his hand. It was
2.1 second, or like a record time.
Yeah, I mean, you never. When's the last time you saw a Bear quarterback get the ball out of his hands that quick?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, a part of that, I think, was to help the offensive line. We're gonna go with the run game. We're gonna go with these quick passes, and I think they needed to take a shot. Now, maybe in fact, when they brought in Justin, I thought maybe that's what they're going to do with Justin. Is take
me
a
too.
shot.
Right.
But they didn't. So, and Nagy admitted that had the score been a little different, Justin would have played more.
Mm-hmm.
Because we talked about it last week. He had a package, probably had 10, 12 plays in his book that, situations that he was going to be used in. Good experience for him. But, going back, people say, well, he should have played. Well, I watched some of those games yesterday, and Trevor Lawrence threw 3 interceptions. Okay. Wilson stunk. Yeah, he had one nice throw, but for the most part, he stunk. The only guy that played good was Mac Jones, and they lost. And I think Trey Lance threw just one pass. So that was a touchdown, 5 yards, and Justin Fields ran for a touchdown. So they're even. But the reason they're not playing was evident with Wilson and Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
They're not ready to play. They haven't seen some of these things. Now, I cannot believe at this time that Justin Fields can get the ball out of his hand as quickly as Andy did.
That's a fact. That's a fact. One of the things that he has been criticized for is that he holds on to the ball for a long time. Now his release.
That's what the game plan. Yeah.
Right.
Now, and part of it is he has a little bit. He has a longer release. We talked about that. He goes like that. And Andy gets it and throws it. The only guy who was quicker is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers got the quickest release I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's awesome.
So it's, I get it. He's going to be the starter before the season's out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be next week. Maybe it's the week after. Who knows? We'll see.
At Cleveland, we'll see. But back to the defense, Matt Stafford was 8 out of 8 on play action for 155 yards and 2 touchdowns. Does a stat like that say anything to you about the Bears defense and the fact that they were suckered on play action every single time?
Well, it tells me that they blew coverages. Come on, you had over 100 yards. You had 30 yards on those 2 touchdowns or something.
Yeah, right, indeed. And then the other thing that was interesting is Darrell Henderson gained 5 yards on 8 of his 16 carries. I mean, half the time he carried the ball, he went for plus 5 yards. Now, a lot of that was in the second half when the defense was just defeated and deflated. But that is a concerning stat, too, because we saw last year that the Bears' run defense was not as effective as we've seen in the past.
Well, yeah, part of that's not having Eddie.
No, that's right.
On some of those base downs, he's gonna be in there, and that's gonna change. Now, this week, the big thing is who's going to line up on the offensive line. Who's going to be your left tackle? Mm-hmm. Is Peters going to be the left tackle, or is he out for a week or two? And then you got to put Wilkinson in there, and he wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't.
But I'll tell you, the guy who impressed me, and then he gets hurt, was Borum.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he played well, and in fact, it wouldn't shock me that going forward that he's stays at left, and Tevin gets put on the right side.
I know you don't like to comment on play calling, but there's a lot of criticism of Nagy's play calling for since last season and maybe beyond that. But what do you think? What can you tell us your opinion about the play calling in last night's game?
Yeah, the only complaint I got, if you want to call it a complaint, is that they didn't take a couple shots. to try to loosen up, and they got the speed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason they didn't do it, that we already talked about.
Right.
They're trying to protect the quarterback and get the ball out of his hands. So they went in thinking that. I don't think it was in the game plan to throw deep. Now, I'll say this. When you're putting together your game plan for the week, it's not Matt Nagy's game plan. That's the whole offensive coaches put that together. Laser's involved in that. Castillo's involved with that. Tight end coach is involved with that. The receiver coach is involved. They've all got input on what they're going to do because they're all the receivers coach is studying the defensive backs. The line coach is studying the line and the linebackers, and they're all seeing what they, think can be done and what can't be done. And being that it was opening day, you had to go back to where Raheem Morris was previously coaching to see how he called defenses, and that's a few years ago when he was doing that. So it makes it very, very difficult unless he was going to do, because you can't trust that he's going to do everything the way Brandon Staley did.
Right. What do you think of the fourth down plays? The Bears went for it on 3 fourth down plays. 2 of them were 4th and 4. One resulted in a fumble, and the other one was 4th down and 15. Your thoughts?
I would have kicked it on the 4th and 15. I get why, and he explained that in the press conference. He was saying, hey, if we don't get the first down, we're out of it anyway. So he was trying to be aggressive. I can't blame him for that. I mean, he saw the defense wasn't playing worth a damn. Mm-hmm. So, the others, hey, the plays didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So if they work, you love them. If they don't work, it's a bad play call. That doesn't always work that way. Go to the execution thing. It's all about executing the play.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Eddie Goldman. His absence yesterday was significant. And what do you think
more
about
in the second half than the first?
Right, which is typical for Eddie Goldman. He sees most of his snaps in the second half when a team is ahead because they're going to be running the ball and you need Goldman in there. Well, what do you think about Danny Trevathan's absence and Alec Ogletree's taking his place on the defense?
Ogletree's a good player. I remember when Ogletree came into the league and was playing for the Rams, and he looked like a steal.
Mm-hmm.
The guy was a hell of a football player.
Yep.
And I don't know why he fell off the face of the map like his 3rd year, 4th year in the league, because he started out like gangbusters. He played good in the preseason. He made some plays yesterday. He's got more speed, more range than Danny has. He had a penalty. I don't know if that was really a penalty.
Didn't look like it to me. At least the camera angles didn't catch anything.
I mean, they were mouthing. Obviously, there's some jawing, but you got jawing every play.
Right.
They called it taunting. Unless you can hear what they're saying, who knows?
Yeah, they're apparently the NFL is cracking down on taunting this season. They just want to ensure that things aren't going to get out of hand. So he may have said something that the referees were instructed by the league office to call.
Yeah, but here's the thing with that. You have they have those things in the preseason as a, quote, point of emphasis.
Mm-hmm.
So they call a bunch of them in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
Just so the players know it. But then once the season starts, it's very rare that you see one of those point of emphasis penalties called.
Right. All right. Everybody is talking also about Khalil Mack. It just seems like he's not making the explosive plays that one of the highest paid NFL defenders should be making. Your evaluation of Mack after last night's game?
Yeah, well, they go into that any game, and you're putting at least 2 guys on him all the time, especially in pass rush situations. And I think he's reached a point in his career where he can't handle 2 guys on a play in and play out basis.
Right.
You know, your body starts to break down. Now, I don't know if they awarded it to him, but I thought, and I tweeted, I thought Quinn should have got a half sack on that one sack.
He did he did officially get that. Yeah.
Okay. Because I tweeted that right away. I said he should get a half because they met at the exact same time.
Absolutely. I saw that too. Yeah.
They got some pressure on Stafford, but not enough. Mm-hmm. And that's a veteran offensive line there. Those guys have been playing together for a while. 2 tackles have been there forever. Whitworth is 2 months older than Peters is. And haven't seen the other tackle. What's he, about 7 or 8 years as a starter for the Rams? On the right side, the guards have been playing a while. That's a very, very solid line. I'm not a Stafford fan, but he played good in that game. But he also showed what he can't do. And when you try to get him to make plays with his feet, he's struggling. Well, he made a good throw on the one rollout, but overall, I mean, he looks like a slow guy trying to roll out.
Yeah, let me see. Let's see this play again where he rolls out to his left to throw that touchdown pass. I think I've got the end zone camera look coming up here because I wondered why there wasn't any contain going on here. So yeah, this is him. He's going to roll out to his left and
bootleg.
It's bootleg, and it is Robert Quinn standing up on the left side of your screen. So he goes inside. The entire line goes inside, allowing Stafford plenty of time, and there he goes.
Yeah, there was no contain, and playing it back now, you can say, okay, he should have been coming, like straight up and in.
Right.
Okay. Right. And instead of slanting and it was a good play call. The play, the motion of the offensive line was that the play was going to the offensive right side. Mm-hmm. He flowed with that. He got fooled. That's why you have plays like that.
Right.
He got fooled. And it was a good play for the defense called.
Dan Orlovsky over at ESPN this morning on the Get Up show said that at this point, Stafford gets his shoulders parallel to the line of scrimmage, which holds the deep safety, thinking that there's going to be a sideline pass to the left on your screen. And then he quickly adjusts his throw because right at the time that the receiver makes the cut to the right side, and that's what froze Eddie Jackson, for whatever that's worth.
Can you play that back? Let me.
Sure. Here it comes, end zone view, courtesy of NBC Network and NFL. We're not making money out of this, guys, so don't steal us. Don't punish us. All right, here it is. Tell me when to stop when you want.
No, you're not going to have to stop. I'm just watching. I'm not buying that. That's blown coverage, period. He's a former Orlovsky's a former Detroit Lion quarterback. He's standing up for his boy.
I saw that you tweeted yesterday the Detroit Lions are who we thought they are, but then they made a comeback and they fell short.
Yeah, they did. They stunk early. I mean, then you see how they made the comeback. I saw the highlights after.
Yes,
that was, they had an onside kick that was blown. Awful play on the 49ers part.
Yes, the 49ers definitely started to relax late in that game because they had that game in hand. It's typically a very well-coached team, but they had their problems in that second half. They clearly relaxed too much on Detroit. All right, let's talk about some of the other action that you saw. First, in the NFL, I know because you're from the Buffalo area, you've got family out there, that you took a look at that Steelers-Buffalo Bills game, which I thought was a fascinating football game. What the Steelers defense did to Buffalo was unbelievable.
Well, number one, the Steelers, in my mind, have been the best organization in football forever. You know, Kevin Colbert's a good friend of mine, and I got a ton of respect for Kevin as a GM. But you look, they've only had like 2 GMs in their history. You know, they had, 3 head coaches in the last 100 years or something. You know, they stay with people. They got a good system. You know, I was thinking when I was working with Philly as a consultant, Philly opened up against Pittsburgh in a preseason game. And because it was the summer, Philly was wearing white and Pittsburgh's in that gold and black. And they just looked big and mean in that thing. You know, no matter how big they really are, they look bigger and meaner.
I totally agree.
That's a tough physical football team. Opening game, I think if they played, 10 times, Buffalo's probably going to win 7 of them. Mm-hmm. But to me, Buffalo and I can be critical too. I think they guilty of reading their own press clippings. We're going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, well, guess what? You've got to beat good football teams to get there. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen he didn't miss anything last year. He threw 70%, was thrown downfield all the time with great accuracy. He was off. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, now, they got to come back. I expect them, last year they had Arizona beaten and then Arizona had that Hail Mary play on the last play of the game to beat them. Mm-hmm. They came back. They never lost after that until the playoffs.
Right.
I expect the same thing to happen starting next week.
Yeah, that team is just stacked with talent, and they have good coaching. Although I thought that their coaching against the Steelers was suspect that time with play calling and so forth. But
McDermott and Tomlin are bros. They played in college together.
I did not know that.
They were teammates at William and Mary.
Greg is so unhappy with the Bears. He says, I want to put a paper bag over my head, but then I settled for plastic. Don't do it, Greg. Please don't do it. Okay. People in the chat room want to know your evaluation on the Green Bay Packers, who
boy, did they stink.
We thought the Bears stunk. No.
Green Bay was awful.
Yeah, that was awful.
I mean, they didn't even show up. Now, I had a feeling, and I had read something about somebody wrote it earlier in the week, and I started thinking about it, and it made a lot of sense. Even though the game was not a, quote, home game, and actually it seemed like there's more Green Bay people there than there were New Orleans people.
Yeah.
Well, it seemed like there was a boatload of Green Bay people. Who knows what the hell the ticket cost was, because game was only moved, 10 days ago?
Right.
But you play in the dome, you're in an air-conditioned situation. Okay, now you got a team in Green Bay, and it's not, we've had a hot summer, and Green Bay's only 2 hours north of where we are, 2.5 hours, but it's been fairly hot up there too. But still not as hot as it was, and humid as it was in Jacksonville. And, what I read during the week was that was going to have a bigger effect on Green Bay than it was if they had played it on the Saints, and then if they had to play in the dome. And early on in the game, Sean Payton's game plan was run the ball, run clock. Mm-hmm. He wore their ass out. They had no gas in the tank in the second half at all. Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers looked like he didn't want to play football.
Yeah.
He looked like he's ready to take over Jeopardy again or something.
That's right. Do you think that was an argument, his performance or lack of performance, an argument for playing these guys in preseason games? Tom Brady plays preseason. Why shouldn't Aaron Rodgers and everyone else who's I was upset that Andy Dalton didn't at least get a first quarter in that third preseason game. Do you think these guys should play more in preseason?
Yeah. Hell, when I started with the Giants, we were playing 6 preseason games.
I recall that.
Okay, so, and this is a true story now. So the year we go to the Super Bowl, we lose in 85 regular season. So it's playoffs or the 84 regular season, 85 playoffs. You have the 85 Bears team. And or I have that wrong, 85 season. Mm-hmm. And you have the 85 Bears team. They kick our ass in the playoffs. And the next year, we got 6 preseason games. In the 6th preseason game, the starters played 3 quarters. Wow. And Bill was given, I think Joe Morris, you have to go back and look at the stats. But I'm listening to the game on the radio because I'm on the road. And I was able to, I was somewhere where I could pick up the radio station that had the Giants thing, and I'm listening to him. I'm screaming at the radio, get those guys out of there. And he's handing the ball off to Joe Morris. Joe Morris is our little 5'7" running back, but he's about this big. And Joe must have had 20 carries in that game. Mm-hmm. We won a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. I think. I was for this theory of resting your starters and so forth. It's new NFL. It's a longer regular season. But now I'm kind of ping-ponging back the other way and thinking these guys need more time. Usually teams that don't start their starters in preseason get off to slow starts. And I think that's what's going on here with the Green Bay Packers. Plus, the loss of David Bakhtiari, their left tackle, that's significant in and of itself just for Aaron Rodgers' mentality. He loves that guy. He loves all of his offensive linemen. He lost his starting center, Corey Linsley, to free agent. Now he's lost his left tackle for the first 6 games at least of the season. And that affects Aaron Rodgers' very fragile sensibilities.
Well, I lost a lot of respect for Aaron Rodgers during this off season. I thought he was acting like a 2-year-old. Mm-hmm. I'm not, being that I'm a former front office guy, I don't agree at all that, the quarterback should have a say in what's going on. Bullshit. If he wants to come in and do all the work, then let him have a say. Mm-hmm. But until he sits down and does all the work, he doesn't get a say because he doesn't know. If he wants to give an opinion, okay, let him give an opinion, and then let it go in one ear and out the other. But, that when he starts studying other teams and studying draft prospects and spending 60 hours a week doing that, then he can have a say. Because then he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
Right now, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He just wants to be catered to.
Right. I do believe that Tom Brady has earned the right to, at the very least, say, this is what I want. Not who I want, but this is what I want in terms of position, or we need to improve here, to have that kind of dialogue. And because not only has Tom Brady been a winner, but he has taken substantial pay cuts or forfeited salary so that he can have a winning team around him. And I think he gets credit. He should get credit for that.
Well, he should, but he's not the big breadwinner in that household.
Lucky guy. Wait a minute, money, it's the same thing here.
much money is he makes. He makes a pittance compared to what his wife makes.
That's awesome. Oh, okay. Notre Dame, you were there at the game. I watched it on that stupid streaming service Peacock, where it had all sorts of.
That's one of the reasons I was glad I went to the game, because I was not going to give them $5.
Oh my gosh, that thing is awful. But hopefully they'll make improvements if they're going to continue to show.
Well, they're not. It's going back to that was the one time. That was to get people to subscribe.
Well, they failed at that. It really did. Tell me what you saw there at Notre Dame Stadium.
You know how you can rise or lower yourself to the level of comp? Mm-hmm. They played to the level of comp. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame's offensive line has not played well. I think unfairly the offensive line coach, who I know is from fans, is getting a lot of heat, but they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They got 4 new starters along the line.
Wow.
A lot of them, and then they had a true freshman starting at left tackle. He got hurt at the beginning of the third quarter a week ago. So now they're on their, it's like the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
They're on in the second half, Saturday, they were on their 3rd left tackle of the season already.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah, because Fisher was the freshman, who's actually might be one of their best linemen, and he's a true freshman. He's a gigantic man. And then he gets hurt. They put this guy named Carmody in. Carmody isn't a left tackle. And he gets beaten like a drum, and he gets hurt too, twists his ankle or something. So then they put in this other guy, Tosh Baker, who was recruited to play left tackle, but he doesn't have the niftiness to play left tackle. He's a right tackle or a guard. So they're, that's struggling. And the quarterback they have, who used to be at Wisconsin, Cone, where he's a good passer, he's an accurate passer. He makes a statue look mobile. He does not scare anybody with his feet. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you noticed, they put in the freshman quarterback, Buckner, and he right away was able to do some things with his feet because of the differences in athleticism. Yep. So I think it's a transitional season for Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. And you have to have a quarterback, an offensive line, and a defensive line. I don't think they have an offensive line because I think if I were them, and I'm not the coach, so my opinion means dirt, but there's a couple other freshmen I'd be playing now, and who are probably better players. And coaches as a whole, especially line coaches, they love experience, and they look at it because of the mental part. Well, this guy's been around for 3 years. He's not going to make any mental mistakes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he's going to get beat. Well, the other guy's got the young kid got more talent, and you can come back and say the same thing about Justin Fields, but it's not quarterback. We're talking offensive line. The other guys, they might make a mental mistake here and there, but their aggressiveness and their athleticism are going to carry them through the course of the game.
Well, I love Notre Dame football, have for a long, long time. I hope that they can win more games than they lose. But from what I
think they're going to win more games than they lose. But I think, it's I'll tell you, they got to play Purdue this week. And Purdue's got a defensive end that has the ability to be a premium round draft choice. Mm-hmm. He's going to give them problems.
Will you be out to that game or any games this weekend?
I'm going to see Notre Dame the next 3 weeks.
Oh, excellent.
A week from now, they're at Soldier Field against Wisconsin. So I'll be at that.
Wow, that sounds like that's the what weekend is that? That's the 25th.
Yeah, whatever that Saturday is.
Yeah. Oh, too bad. I'm going to be at the Cleveland game. Am I going to be?
Oh, you're going to Cleveland? Yeah, but the Cleveland game's not till Sunday night.
The Bears in Cleveland are a Sunday night game?
Yes, sir.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I didn't realize it either. I looked the other day. There I hate the night games, too. 2 out of the first 3 games are Sunday night.
All right. I want to conclude our episode here of Greg Gabriel Talks Football by I know you didn't get a chance to see the Vikings and Bengals game, but I have been of the opinion that the Vikings defense is far from what it was 3 years ago. In fact, I put up a stat on the @Barroom Network Twitter account where the yards per game has gotten worse by 50 yards the last 3 seasons. So when the Bengals, Joe Burrow gets 260 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and Joe Mixon gets 127 yards rushing, those guys are good. Burrow is going to be a top quarterback in this game, and Mixon, we already know his capabilities, but I think that has a lot to do with a faulty Vikings defense. So what's your overall impression about the Bears, Cincinnati at Soldier Field this Sunday?
Well, I watched maybe 5 minutes of that game, and actually, I watched the overtime. Maybe a couple plays during the game before that, but Vikings don't do anything for me at all. They're a very undisciplined football team. Kirk Cousins is a guy.
That's a good quote.
I saw a tweet somebody put out. It might have been Eric at home.
Mm-hmm.
They're like a couple minutes into the game, and Vikings already had 4 penalties.
Yeah, it was atrocious. I saw that.
How do you expect to win games like that?
Yep. And I have a lot of respect for Coach Mike Zimmer. I think he's an excellent defensive mind, but it just seems to me like he's lost control. I mean, I don't understand why these guys, these tough disciplinary coaches, lose the discipline of the team. For Mike Zimmer to have a team that is committing penalties, stupid penalties like that, it's just beyond me. I don't get it.
Well, it could be a couple reasons, and I might be throwing a dart at the wall here.
Mm-hmm.
The tough, hard guy thing can wear on you after a while. So then the players aren't listening to it. And then, subconsciously the players can say, you know what, it's time for a change. And they just don't play as good. The guy gets fired, then they play a little harder then because they got a new sheriff in town, and they want to make the team.
Fascinating.
But I would think that, and Spielman is a friend of mine. I've known him since he came in the league. I would think both him and Zimmer are in trouble if they don't win this year.
Yeah.
And from what I saw yesterday, they ain't going to win.
They've got some issues, and hopefully the Chicago Bears can take advantage of the Vikings in the 2 upcoming games later this season, take advantage of that weak Detroit Lions team. Don't be fooled by their comeback, and take advantage of the 2 games they'll have against the Green Bay Packers, a team that looked truly pathetic. They may have been the worst team on football yesterday, Sunday, the worst performance.
Yesterday they were, and you asked me about it, and over Twitter yesterday, they got rid of Mike Pettin, who was a above average defensive coordinator in the league, and they won with him coordinating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they bring in a new guy, and Peyton just took him to the woodshed.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you brought up Mike Pettin's name, because this will be the last topic. I promise I won't let you go. Mike, it was prolific at Green Bay with creating exotic blitzes. I don't think there weren't any exotic blitzes last night. And now it's Sean Desai's defense, so maybe he's part of the problem. But I didn't, perhaps it was smart not to blitz Stafford, given the talent that the Rams have. But I'm hoping that we'll see some of those exotic blitzes, because the Bears' 4-man rush to the quarterback is just not getting it done.
No, I think it has to do more with, we're really going to get burnt. They had blown. You're not expecting to have blown coverages like they had, but then you're thinking, okay, we're going to play safe and we're going to be in coverage and we're not going to give up the big play.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to do that, we can't blitz.
There you go.
That's your mindset going into the game. You make it a determination, before the game to do, actually during the week, to do that. So you'd have to get that from a coach to verify it, but that was my take.
Right. Makes sense to me, as you always do, Greg Gabriel. Again, learning a lot about the game of football and getting all that inside information for you. Lots of people in the chat room are thanking you, Greg. I am thanking you. I'm going to let you go.
They're not cursing me and MFing you or anything?
No, they're cursing Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace.
They always do.
That's right. A big win against the Cincinnati Bengals, and you'll see that tone change. But
That's
But
the way it works.
here's an example of what's going on in the chat room. Fire Nagy and Pace. This is a shit show.
It's not going to happen. So,
No.
no.
It is not.
And if you fired Matt, who's going to be your head coach?
Mike Patton.
Why? Because he was a head coach before?
Yeah, that's part of it. And part of
Well,
it.
he's only a head coach for a season in Cleveland, and he got fired.
That's
I think there's a lot involved in that thing.
Mhm.
The owner was mingling. Joe Banner was there then, and Joe got fired, and there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Bruce Ollie Walter Jordan says, what about Bill Lazor as your head coach? In fact, name him today as the head coach.
No, Bill, I'm all for Bill doing the play calling.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did a good job last year when he took over. I wouldn't be a bit surprised that happens within the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Depending, you got to see how this thing. I don't have a big complaint about the offensive game plan yesterday. I get what they were trying to do. I wish they would have tried to take a couple shots, but again, I don't want to be redundant, but they were trying to protect, not knowing what they had in the offensive line. They're trying to protect the quarterback.
Right. I'm with you. I mean, in fact, Nagy was asked about that at today's press conference about running the ball and trying to get David Montgomery up to 20 carries. Well, he had 16. And if the Bears weren't trailing by such a large amount in the fourth
quarter, he went another 6 or 7.
Easily.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I thought
and if you look at the total carries, Williams had a bunch of carries too now.
That's right. Damian Williams. And
he had a lot of touches because he caught at least 4 passes.
Right. I was totally impressed with the time of possession, the amount of first downs that the Bears got. The problem is that they just did not score, and the Bears defense gave up explosive play after explosive play.
Well, I don't like the term explosive play in those cases because that was blown plays.
Well put. Well put.
I mean, that was if your coverage is right and you don't blow your coverage, those 2 plays don't happen.
Mm-hmm. That is well put.
I mean, they were. When you look at him, he's throwing the ball downfield, and there's nobody on these guys. They're all by themselves.
I think that should be a new stat. Pro Football Focus, if you're listening, send Greg Gabriel a check. you can use that.
Yeah. Don't put those in explosive play column. Put them in blown play column.
There you go. Exactly. All right, Greg, I'm going to let you go. I'm just going to say a couple of things in terms of programming for our people. Thanks again. We will see you here next Monday after the Bears beat the Bengals. That's my prediction. Because you talked me off the ledge. You did. You talked me off the ledge.
You're still there. I know I talked on.
You're the best.
I wasn't talking to myself the last hour.
No, you weren't. All right, we'll see you next Monday, pal.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All right, I just want to let people know that tonight is baseball night at the Bar Room. At 7 p.m., it's the Friendly Confines, and it's a 30-minute fast-paced look at the Chicago Cubs. And so what's there to talk about the Chicago Cubs? There's plenty, especially if you're a Cubs fan. So tune in at 7 p.m. live right here on the Barroom Network for Cubs coverage. And then at 7:45, the Southsiders and all White Sox fans around the world, South Burbs Hitman. What a show. It is catching fire. We see Ozzie Guillen, the former manager of the White Sox, wearing his South Burbs Hitman hat. We're going to send him some more T-shirts and hoodies and all that stuff. They'll probably wear them every day. He loves his South Burbs Hitman hat, and many thanks to Ozzie Guillen Jr. for making that happen. And the guys over at South Burbs Hitman, led by Joe Mandel, are just doing a tremendous job. So that is tonight, and then tomorrow it is back to more live programming with for dedicated to Chicago Bears, and Dan and Aldo Bear Their Souls starts at 7:30. We're also recording the Bear Debate Show tomorrow, late afternoon, early morning, and so that will be posted for you first thing Wednesday morning. And that is the show, our new show, where John Buffone and Tyler Ellis debate each other on various topics. That's going to be explosive, and then I try to separate them. But it's a fast-paced 30-40 minute show, and that will be available for you Wednesday morning. tons more programming. The best way to stay on top of it all is to subscribe to the Barroom Network. Here on YouTube is that little bell. Hit subscribe, and the bell will give you all the reminders when we're live. And then also make sure you subscribe to our audio podcast network, Barroom Network. You can find that on iTunes, Spotify, you name it. Any place that is you get podcast delivered, we are there for you. Lots of fun. Hopefully the Bears will make it even more fun by getting on a winning streak here. I want to thank everyone who's joined us live. Mule, you're here all the time, man. Thank you very much. And PZ, you're the best as well. I could just go on another 15 minutes thanking everybody that was in the chat room, but I won't. I will instead say tune in tonight for baseball, and then back tomorrow here for more football talk. I gotta now talk Dan Aguirre off the ledge. He's been texting me saying, "Oh no." Take care, everyone. See you soon.